Get it off your chest. It's the Nightcap Conversations with Lula Odiba.
Welcome to the second hour of the show, and it is Teachers Day, World Teachers Day, so we are here to commemorate the best of the best. So one of the oldest professions in the world is teaching. From the beginning of time, the schooling system has been accompanied by a group of people who are dedicated to shaping our lives and helping us craft our futures, right? So every single one of us has been impacted or affected by a teacher whom we've crossed paths with, right? So according to the Department of Basic Education, South Africa has just over 410,000 registered teachers, and there's endless conversation about the country producing more, as the target is close to 500,000 by the year 2025. Now, this is fair considering that these 410,000 teachers are employed at over 25,000 schools, covering the curriculum for 14.9 million learners. Now, if you left high school many years ago, just like myself, I want to take you back a little bit. Who was your favorite teacher? What subject did they teach? What drew you to them, and what sort of impact have they made in your life today? Next to our parents, teachers are the second most influential people in a child's life, with the ability to inspire and encourage us to reach our dreams. Today is World Teachers Day, as I have mentioned, which was first commemorated in the year 1966. So in observance of this, we look at the profession of teaching and some of its challenges right here in South Africa. We also take a look at how the profession has evolved to meet learners where they are in this technology and internet era. How does one become a new age teacher in order to connect better to the generation that is occupying the classroom today? Now, here's how you can be a part of this conversation. There's something very cool that we want to do on the show tonight. Send us a voice note, a very cute one, if you will. You shouting out your favorite primary or high school teacher, telling us who they are, what grade did they teach, and what grade were you in when they taught you that, as well as the positive impact they've had on your life. You can also send us a voice note on the YFM app or call us up in the studio line. It's 011-772-0992. Let's celebrate and honor our school teachers tonight on the Nightcap Conversation. So the Global Teachers Institute, or also known as GTI in Parktown, is a teacher development network of educators, schools and organizations committed to developing high-quality teachers through school-based initial teacher education programs, international exchange and collaborative platforms. The executive director, Dr. Faye Hodza, joins us live in studio. Hello, Dr. Faye.
Wow. Hello. Thank you very much, Lula.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Welcome to your listeners as well. Thank you for this opportunity.
Dr. Faye, I want you to talk to us about the quality of teachers we currently have in South Africa, right? How do we rank when we compare ourselves to the rest of the world?
Lula, before I answer your question, I really think that it's important for me to give a shout out to our teachers out there.
Yeah,
and I'm one of them.
Shout out to your
teachers. Yeah, we are here celebrating the World Teachers Day, the 5th of October. It's quite interesting because it's an opportunity really for us to celebrate and highlight the responsibilities of teachers. To highlight the duties of teachers and also to highlight the value that teachers add to our society.
Absolutely.
And that's really, really exciting. So some of the things that we'll talk about may make some people feel like I am not appreciating, but we do appreciate the work that teachers do. Now, coming to your question, it's a mixed bag. There are some really great, committed and high-achieving teachers in South Africa.
Right.
And despite the challenges they face, there are teachers who go above and beyond to make learning fulfilling, exciting, and really truly enriching for our children. And we are products of really exciting teachers, right? And they are empathetic. We have some teachers who are really empathetic. We have teachers who are socially responsible. And we have teachers who have some instructional and academic mastery of their subject, the work that they do. So really very, very exciting there. There are some teachers really who are doing a great job in terms of not just teaching the facts and figures, but they are going over and above to create transformative teachers who are not just, creating students who do not just reproduce some facts and figures that they have learned in class. We call that rotten learning. It's something that we see that teachers are playing a very significant role in creating problem solvers, right? But there's a but there, and it's important for us to highlight that. There's some disturbing findings about the quality of teachers in South Africa. And one of them is coming from a survey which is called TIMSS.
Okay.
TIMSS stands for Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study. So they look at international achievements in maths, science, and reading.
Okay.
So look at what we have learned. That's shocking. Half of all South African pupils who have attended school for 5 years can't do basic calculations.
Whoa, that is shocking.
That's shocking.
Yo.
And another thing that we find, at the same time, it's calculated that 10% of the country's teachers are absent from school each day. We also know that 79% of South African grade 6 maths teachers were classified as having content knowledge levels below the level at which they are teaching.
Wow.
So those are really scary figures.
Yeah, sad statistics, those
Yeah.
ones. Yeah.
We also know that according to the Teaching and Learning International Survey that took place in 2018, 51% of teachers in South Africa do not see teaching as their first choice profession, compared to 34% average in the world. 32% of teachers in South Africa are aged, guess what? 50 years.
How much percent?
50%.
50% of the teachers are over 50.
No. 32%.
Oh, 32. But still, it's a shocking number.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
So it means that
Young people don't want to teach.
that's exactly the problem that we have, right? And the young people, the average age of teachers in South Africa is 43 years.
From young people.
Yeah. So that shows us that, another statistic that is quite interesting. That is according to TALIS, Teaching and Learning International Survey, which is endorsed by our government. Principals, the leaders in the schools, right, are aged 51 years on average. So which means at this point, we are going to have a huge shortfall of teachers in the future. In fact, there are estimations that by 2025, we may be requiring 45,000 teachers a year.
Yeah. So I want to know, Dr. Faye, where is the local education system failing teachers in their ability to acquire skills or even execute their jobs to the best of their abilities?
I would say this. Again, I want our listeners to understand that the government is trying its best to ensure that, or to support our teachers. So we understand that there's a lot of effort, work. You talk of Funza, bursaries, NSFAS, and all that. All those are put in place to support the training, not only, the training of teachers, really, right? So there is effort to do that. But there are so many problems within our education system. We actually think of it as a wicked problem. A wicked problem is a problem that is multifaceted. In other words, there are so many things that we need to address for us to solve that problem. Right? And it's difficult to deal with. It's a hard problem to solve. And the education system in South Africa and in the world, it's a very, very difficult thing. So, but where are we failing? I'll tell you. The first one, the big one that every teacher will tell you, even our listeners, they'll tell you it's poor salaries.
I feel like teachers are grossly underpaid, and cops as well, which are two most essential jobs in my opinion.
You see now.
I
agree with you. Remember, I'll tell you that for me, teaching is the mother of all professions.
Of course.
So without a teacher, there's no medical doctor. There's no anyone. You can't think of anything outside teaching. What else can come out without teachers, right? So it's poor salaries. And in some cases, students, and this is interesting, in some cases, students are richer than their students, their teachers.
The teachers.
Right?
Sure.
For many years, I experienced it myself, working in the school system. And you really feel that the students that you are teaching are far better than you in terms of the resources that they have, right? And I think that's a very difficult thing for teachers to manage. They can't even change their own wardrobes regularly, and they're expected to dress decently, to dress formally, but they do not have the resources to do that. That's a tough one for most of our teachers, right? And there's also another big component for teachers is that we are transitioning now into a new age.
Right.
You know, we have this new age teachers or new age life that people experience, right? We are talking of a highly technological society. People say of the fourth industrial revolution era. There are some specific skills that are required for you to thrive in the classroom, but also in society,
Right.
in life in general, right? You need to be you have to be technologically equipped, both, in terms of your skills, but also in terms of ability to use the equipment in the classroom.
Yeah.
And some of the teachers that we have in the classroom, they are in the 50s, they'll tell you, hey,
I'm sorry.
I can't do it. I don't know about this, right?
Yeah.
And so I think teacher education and development is critical. And that's where GTI comes in, really, where we are saying we understand the challenges that teachers are facing, the training system, we need to upgrade the skills that teachers have. Surely you can't expect someone to operate in a 21st century classroom using the skills that they gained in the 80s. It's something that I think we need to really look at, right? Yeah, in fact, for your information and for the sake of our listeners, there's another huge problem that we are experiencing with our teachers. The new teachers, you guess how many years do they spend in the classroom or in the teaching profession after joining for the first time?
I would say 10 maybe.
10?
Yeah.
This will shock you. On average, our teachers, the new teachers only spend 3 years and they resign, they leave. 3 years. So teaching or training a teacher or education is a very expensive business to do, right? And we invest for 4 years, right? Let's just assume that someone is paying 100,000 plus. So for 4 years, we have invested how much? 400, 500,000 for 4 years. And they teach for only 3 years and they leave. That's a big loss.
Yeah, that is a big loss.
For our students. So that's another big issue. In fact, one of my colleagues shared something that I found very worrying. It says that most of our teachers are looking at the accumulated pension, right? What are they looking at for? As soon as they feel that the pension is good enough to start a small business, then they resign and, cash their pension.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. But I know, let me just think of another worrisome thing for me is the way we are, making it difficult for our teachers. I think it's the system itself, the education system. We need to rethink how we provide education.
Okay.
Basic education, right? We want our system to be a virtuous cycle. In other words, when you say it's virtuous, it constantly produces positive, inspiring teachers. But the system that we have, it tends to, so think, someone goes to high school, primary and high school, they are working with a demotivated teacher. Then they move from high school, they move to university, they are working in a demotivating system. Then after graduation, they go to teach in a public school
They are
that is
also demotivated.
They are demotivated and they are working with demotivated students. What happens? It becomes
cycle.
It becomes a vicious cycle, which we are worried about.
So how would you say has the teaching profession changed or evolved from when our parents and grandparents were teachers, to the teachers that we have now?
You see, change is quite interesting thing to discuss, right?
Yeah.
But I can tell you that from the way I see it and my own experience, in the past, teaching was more of a calling.
Yes.
Right? People loved teaching and they joined teaching because they felt that they are giving to the society. You are giving life to the society. There's also, it was nurturing, when a child feels like, when you see a child in class who is not performing, they have a problem. There was that, connection that teachers had with their students, right? And made every effort to teach. I remember, in my case, at some point, I did not go to school. because I was not feeling well. And my teacher came home to check.
Oh, wow.
And every member of my family knew that the teacher has come to check on me. Can you imagine if I was not feeling well, if I had created a story or I had banged school, what would have happened? But today, some teachers, okay, you just mark in the register to indicate that the child did not come to school, but there's no connection. And I think those are some of the things that we are seeing changing. Another thing is that teaching was not just a stepping stone to something better. I think one of the challenges we need to deal with is that teaching at this point is seen as a stepping stone. And most of our teachers don't feel very comfortable even celebrating. Today we are celebrating teachers, but some do not celebrate it. Even when they go to family meetings, they do not come out as teachers.
As teachers, yeah.
Why? Because it's not as valued as it used to do. And I think we need to change that, right? And ensure that people begin to celebrate. And I think World Teachers Day is a great platform for this, where we begin to celebrate it. It was an honorable profession, right? Something that people will be proud of, and also it was transformational. I think that's also the other thing about the teaching profession. It was transformational at a personal level. Right? When you're a teacher, you'd feel I've achieved something. I've done great in the community, right? Yeah, so teachers were seen as wise.
Yeah.
They were wise, they're respectable, and the conscience of the society. If you look into history, I will not go into that, but if you look into history, you actually see that some of our leading people, statesmen in Africa, in South Africa, they came through the teaching profession, right? Why? Because to challenge apartheid, right? It's because that's the role. You are the conscience of society, okay?
So the advent of the internet and technology has meant that, teaching is no longer confined to a classroom due to the COVID-19 outbreak, right? And COVID pretty much emphasized that. How equipped are we as a country to accommodate this change, would you say?
That's a difficult question.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very difficult to tell, really. I'll be honest with you. However, I can tell you that the digital divide is real. Right? By digital divide, I mean that we know that there are some people who have the means to afford the new technologies, the tools that we need, including the schools. There are schools that they are well prepared. When COVID hit, for example, they were ready to pivot and go online, right?
Yeah.
But we also have some schools which were not ready at all, right? They were not prepared to do that, right? And so South Africa, this is public knowledge. South Africa is a very unequal society, right? On the Gini coefficient, I think we are 0.97%, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but it's right high up there, right? What does that tell us? Basically, tell us that you see affluence you see affluence and poverty side by side.
Side by side, yeah.
So that's what we see in schools as well. There are some schools that are really good, so they will be able to accommodate the changes. But for the GTI, this is why we drive this. We realize that particularly our public schools and our schools in townships, in historically disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged communities, they tend to struggle to cope with these changes, right? So the adjustment is very tough for schools like that. They don't even, sometimes I visited another project site, I will not name it, but someone donated laptops, they donated whiteboards.
Okay.
But they were pegged in a small room, right? Why? Because they don't know how to use them.
Oh, no. So
Right?
what did they end up doing with them?
It's of course, we have our GTI our future leaders who are working in those schools. So when we heard about that, we then brought them in and say, hey, you have the skills. Then they will provide the training to the other teachers and to help them to use those equipment, right? Yeah. So that pivoting, that shifting, that adjustment, that agility that we need is it's important, but it's very difficult to build. And I think organizations that are driving that, we need to continuously support them. And finally, I think what makes it even tougher, there's some research indicating that schools are not just learning centers or sites of learning. They are also kind of feeding or nutritional sites, sites where, or nutritional centers, right? Places where children from poor communities actually go to have a nutritional food, a nutritional meal. So when we then pivot and say we are now going online, it's very difficult for people to shift, because if they don't go to school, there's no food to eat.
So we're seeing a lot more learners express their sexualities and gender identities from as early as 8 years old, right? How sensitized are our teachers in handling these kinds of things in schools?
I think the question is so easy. In terms of sensitization, I think all teachers are sensitized. I mean, diversity is part and parcel of, whether you think of a life orientation, it's big, right? So teachers understand that, even in their professional conduct. The sensitization has happened. We also know that the Constitution protects the learners and the teachers, right? Or some schools actually have policies that enables, students, LGBTQ youth or children to express themselves freely without being discriminated. So that's given. However, I think we have to deal with religious beliefs. I think that's a big one, right? Because there are some people who really believe in certain ways that do not go along with the new thinking around this. But there's also the traditional beliefs. Right? So I think we need to start to continue with the engagement. Yeah. So what I've seen in many of the schools, there is a sensitization and understanding. So they welcome people from different sexual orientations, for example, but at the same time, they themselves still struggle to appreciate, to understand, and think of how to handle it in the classroom context. So I think now there's need to move towards empowerment, right? Empowering the student, yes, and also empowering the teacher so that they are able to support students that come into their class who may be LGBTQ communities.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
So in your observation, what are schools doing to get rid of prejudice, whether it's racial or homophobia or whatever, to make the school grounds a safe space against bullying?
I think schools are really doing much because there's that understanding that any form of discrimination is unacceptable. Any form of discrimination should not be accepted in the schools. So one of the things that I've seen is, of course, I think the government has also done well with life orientation classes. I think just to help everyone to understand that bullying, discrimination is not on. So that's one thing that we celebrate. I've heard some people arguing that life orientation should be removed from our schools. I don't think it's I don't think it's a good idea. Even if we think that learners have lost learning time, removing life orientation is a bad idea. But there are inclusion clubs in the schools, right? So the inclusion clubs is, either bringing people from different communities coming together, white, non-heterosexual, whatever, be it racial, right? You bring them together in those and they discuss openly, right? What their challenges are. They create safe spaces, right? Then build allies, in different parts of the schools.
Yeah.
So that's something that we have seen. But if you go into public schools, it's also still a big challenge because despite the school policies that are anti-bullying that we have, despite the fact that we might have social workers and psychologists also supporting in the schools, involvement of parents also coming in for parents-teacher meetings and updates, I think those kind of arrangements are quite useful. However, the problem is, you might have policies, you might have all these activities, but do people really follow it? I think we constantly need to be revisiting that and, hammer it home so that everyone thinks of schools as safe spaces for learning
I love
and for
that.
development.
So we often see videos that go viral on social media of, violent exchanges between learners and teachers. What sort of things can cause a breakdown in that mutual respect between a teacher and a learner?
It's quite a lot of things. But for me, I'll just go quickly here. I think lack of exemplary leadership on the part of the teacher. So, if you are not showing a good example to your students, they lose respect of you. So I think exemplary leadership is key. But also not setting relationship boundaries. I think if you cross, there are certain lines that you should not cross as a teacher. I think it comes to professional standards and the professionalization. So every teacher understands that there are some professional standards that we abide by. So if you cross those lines, it might actually create big issues. But also poor leadership in the schools. It's a lot of things, right? So if the school has poor... I went to another school and I was surprised that kids were just walking around. There is no control. It's learning time instead of being in class. They are just loitering around. I think that creates that disrespect because there's nothing really we are doing to support. But there's also the family of origin, which I think is also important, right? Where the student is coming from, right? If a child is coming from a broken home, and by broken home, I mean a place where there are no boundaries, a place where children can just fight and there's no control. Parents hit each other while the kids are watching. There's violence in the home. So they'll think that that's the way of doing things. So when they come to school, they just continue with the same way of doing. So that's where the problems come in. So if kids think that violence is the way to deal with things at home, alcohol abuse in the home, they'll bring it at home. They bring drugs in the schools and all that. So that's where these issues come from.
Now, since corporate punishment and expulsion is against the law in schools, how else are learners disciplined?
There are various ways we can do this. One of it, I think, for me, praise. Give children praise, even when they are not doing
nice,
right. When they've done something, give them praise. Celebrate what they've done. When we do that, praise also encourages them to learn self-discipline. So you encourage them by praising them. But you can also create spaces, especially where there's misunderstanding or conflict between students. You can or kids. You can actually bring them together and have a discussion. Then they solve their issue. But there's also, guidance and counseling. It's also a very important way. Some methods we can use there, to support them. Then finally, timeout. It works depending on the age of the child. I'm sure our listeners, those who are young, they've experienced that at some point where the teacher pushes you in a corner and say, think carefully about your behavior. Yeah.
All right. So considering the work that you do at GTI, what's the one thing exchange teachers always mention about South Africa and its schools?
I'll tell you, I'm relatively new with GTI, so I haven't met with the exchange teachers in person, but those that I've met online, the new new normal, they really tell me something about the commitment of teachers and learners.
Oh, that's nice.
They tell me that, our teachers and students do a lot under very difficult circumstances. Our teachers are resilient and hardworking, and they do this with limited resources and in some cases, very poor infrastructure.
And Dr. Fair, how would you encourage more young people to become teachers?
Yeah, I think for me, there are different ways we can do that. One, we as GTI in the past, we would do roadshows. Okay. Reach out to young people and, share what we do in the schools. Right? So highlighting the values, the responsibilities and the rights of teachers so that everyone begins to appreciate that. But World Teachers Day is also an important space or opportunity to highlight the value of the teaching profession. And I'm so grateful that you invited us to this conversation.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So I can say even now, I can do that and tell to all young people listening to this show, South Africa needs you.
Yeah.
The world needs you. Teaching and becoming a teacher should never be a last resort. It should be your first choice. It's great. The world needs you.
Incredibly enough, I just got 2 voice notes coming through from the YFM app of some people just shouting out their favorite teachers. Let's have a listen.
Hi guys, my name is Tabo and I'm doing grade 12 at Riverside High School. I just wanted to say Happy International Teachers Day to our teachers at Riverside High. You are the best, we love you, and please continue with the love and the good work. We are proud of you.
Secondary School, Happy International Teachers Day. Kubo bonke othisha eraphila basiphethe kahle futhi siyabathanda.
Oh, very, very sweet. So we're celebrating World Teachers Day in tonight's conversation. Share your views on the South African education system and send a shout out to your favorite school teacher by dropping us a voice note, just like our 2 homies did on the YFM app. You can call us up on 011-772-0992. When we come back, we take more of your teacher shout outs and we chat to some student teachers. Stick around. Music Zinger and KO in the background with Lead the Way. 25 minutes before the hour of 9 p.m. We're still celebrating teachers on tonight's Nightcap Conversations. And 011-772-0992 is where you can call us and send a shout out to your favorite teacher as we celebrate World Teachers Day. So we spoke earlier to Dr. Faye Hodza, who is the Executive Director at Global Teachers Institute. Now joining us now is Relebohile Telisi as well as Desiree Sifuka, who are both student teachers. Welcome to YFM, ladies.
Thank you.
I hope I said your names correctly.
Yeah, you did.
God, it's very, very dope to have you guys here. And yeah, happy World Teachers Day. Shout out to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So feel free to answer the question. I'm going to ask both of you the question, and whoever feels comfortable to answer it, go ahead and do that. I want you to tell us about your favorite teacher and why they made an impact in your particular life.
Okay, I'm gonna go first.
Sure.
So now I have 3 favorite teachers actually.
Dope.
It was, should I mention their names?
You can if you want.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have Ratulo Mamakobo, Reneilo Pukubia, and Meme Bonda. So it was my home language teacher, business teacher, and home language teacher. So now these women were basically, they were like my pillar of strength during my high school years, most likely grade 12. They were there, and they actually, the way they taught and the way they were there for each and every learner in class was actually amazing. It's amazing how they shared their personal experiences, and they actually motivated us not to even give up, because when you're in grade 12, you just have these challenges that they come about and you don't know where they're coming from, and everything just becomes so much to handle. But then they were there, they gave me a fighting spirit, and they actually just pushed me to see teaching differently, because now when you're in primary, you're just looking at teachers and that's the last thing that I want to do.
Yeah, I adore that.
Yeah.
How about you, Ripley?
My favorite teacher is a teacher I had in primary school.
Okay.
For grade 1.
Oh, wow.
And I've always said that of all the teachers that I've heard, I remember her most, and she actually inspired me to choose the phase that I'm teaching, to choose foundation phase, because she went above and beyond for us, and I believe that a huge part of the kind of person that I am is actually attributed to her.
Yeah.
Because she used to teach us poems and make us stand in the assembly and talk. So a lot of my confidence that I still carry, even when I walk into a room today, is from her teachings.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. I still want to ask you, how did you fall in love with teaching? Was it that moment when that teacher from grade 1, or did it happen later on in life? Maybe you are now in high school and you decided this is what I want to do.
Well, I've always known that I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
But because it's a profession that's frowned upon, I thought, well, I should try something else, but then it found me. And I've always said that out of everything in the world, I think I learn best. I'm the best student. So if there's a thing that I would not mind doing for the rest of my life, is being in a position where I could always be learning. Because teaching evolves. It's not the same for me. It's a challenge. Every day is different. And you can never say you know enough. So you always get an opportunity to learn alongside with your students. So I really love that about teaching.
Incredible.
That I'll be a lifelong learner, and every day it's just a new challenge, and I just can explore different things.
Yeah. Desiree, what was your family's response when you told them that, guys, I want to be a teacher?
Wow. Oh, for me, my family. Well, I never really considered teaching as a profession for myself when I was back in school. I only fell in love with it when I was in grade 12.
Oh, wow.
Actually.
Yeah.
So now, when I got home and I'm like, I applied for a Future Leaders program, and they're asking me, what is it about? I'm telling them, and I can see that they don't understand, but then they're like, what are you going to be doing actually? I'm
Yeah.
like, teaching. I'm like, okay, what are you going to be teaching? Are you not scared of the learners? That's the first question that they're asking. You're so young. And I'm like, yes, we need young teachers. And they're like, but then they're going to be disrespectful. I'm like, I can handle them. I know I was a child, I was a kid, I was a learner. So now I think I'll get the hang of it as time goes on. So they actually accepted and they became supportive and they actually love it.
Oh, shout out to your family, man. It's interesting they said to you, you're so young, because as Dr. Faye mentioned earlier, the average teachers are over 50.
Exactly.
Which means even our parents know, Wuti, like teaching is for quote-unquote old people. So I'm glad that that's changing. Would you say that, teaching is a calling, or can anyone choose it and as a means to an end?
Well, I actually think that you cannot say it's a means to an end, because now when you're saying, I feel like when you're saying that it's a means to an end, it means that you're just doing it for the salary and you're not actually passionate about it. It's just a job. You do it, you get paid, life goes on. And when you are passion driven, that's where you fall in love with it. So for some people, it's a calling, and then for some people, they fall in love with it as time goes on, but then they are actually passion driven. They don't use it as a means to an end, because I feel like as young people, if we look at teaching as a means to an end, we just get burnt out instantly. Hence, many young teachers just last for like 3 years in the teaching field, and they go looking for something new, because they didn't actually come in there for the learners. They just came in there for the benefits. They'll tell you about benefits of being in a government school, benefits of being in a private school, and the list goes on. But then if you see it as something that you love and something that you're actually willing to do, then you will just fall in love with the learning that comes with it, the years that come with it, and you'll just fall in love with learning as a whole.
Yeah, I think we've already established that the money is not great in teaching, so you can't exactly enter the profession with the mindset that it's a means to an end. It actually takes a lot to be a teacher. You don't have the luxury of saying your job ends as your students walks out outside the classroom. You carry a lot of their issues, so I believe that it has to be a calling. Otherwise, it's going to take a lot from you as a person. You'll end up being frustrated and not leading a happy life, and nobody wants that. So teaching should be a calling, so that you are able to give 100% to your students, and you do not rob them of having the opportunities of having a great teacher that's willing to go above and beyond them. Because there are some instances where you need to be more than just a teacher. You don't need to just deliver content. There are some situations that will require you to be a mother, to be nurturing, to be empathetic, to help a student go through certain situations that nobody else can help them. So I do believe that teaching is a calling.
It's World Teachers Day today, and we're hanging out with two student teachers, Relebohile as well as Desiree, as they tell us about their journey in terms of teaching. Be a part of the conversation. Hit us up on Twitter right now. It's at YFM. You can also send us a voice note. In fact, I just got one.
My name is Katlewood Ledstone Taung. I'm from Southview High, doing grade 11. I'd like to say Happy International Teachers Day to Mr. Mloto, my deputy principal, who's teaching me maths literacy.
Shout out to you, man. Keep them coming. Once again, you can hit me up on the YFM app. Send that voice note. Let's go. I'm still hanging out with Relebohile as well as Desiree, who are two student teachers in commemoration of World Teachers Day. Ladies, you're still with me, right?
Yeah.
So what subjects do you guys teach?
I am teaching home language, Sepedi.
Okay.
And life orientation and history.
Lovely. Your
I'm
side?
teaching foundation phase, grade R to 3, so it's English, it's mathematics, life skills, and home language.
Do you mean numeracy,
Yes,
literacy? There's no
numeracy,
math. So why do you think it's important for teachers to be aware of the role that they play in shaping the futures of young learners?
I believe that as a teacher, you become a role model involuntarily. So you don't choose whether you want to be a role model or not. So it's very important to be aware of how you carry yourself, because the future of young children, you've been entrusted with their future. So you could either break it or mold it into something beautiful. So children tend to respect their teacher, to look up to them, and whatever you do as a teacher is seen as the correct way of doing things. When I grew up, our parents used to frighten us using teachers. So if you do something wrong at home, they will say, we will tell your teacher that you're doing this or you're refusing to do that. And I believe that students, your responsibility to actually move in the right direction and guide your students so that you ensure that when they leave the classroom, whatever value and morals you instilled in them can carry them throughout the rest of their life.
Did you sound like you're a great teacher?
She is.
You sound like you're a fantastic teacher.
So for me, I think that the school is regarded as the second home for the child.
Yeah.
So now, as a teacher, you need to have morals and values that you stand by, and I, as the learner, will be able to follow. So now, if you are a rebellious teacher, you come late to class, you don't teach, you just sit around, and the learner is basically going to do the same thing. You can't expect the learner to do their homework while you're not teaching, or you're just not marking my work and you're expecting me to deliver, or you're just coming late to school and you're expecting me to come early. So now I feel like it's the little things that count in the child's life. Just instilling that little discipline goes a long way. Because now, if you're teaching me punctuality at a younger stage in primary school, then I'll be able to carry it forward in my workplace and varsity and so forth. So I feel like as teachers, we have to be careful of our behavior, but then being careful does not mean that you have to be strict in a manner whereby you're not approachable. You have to be approachable in a manner that learners are able to come to you with problems. Learners are able to cry for help. Learners are able to see you as a role model, as Lebohile said. So now there's a very thin line between actually this relationship between learners and teachers, because now it can be broken easily whereby the teacher is too comfortable with the teacher.
Then and
then you have the learners who now they take advantage of the teacher who's like, maybe there's a learner who's now coming from a poor background. I offer to buy groceries for her this month, and then the next month you'll just come lying. They take advantage of you. So now it's a matter of being careful, but then also being approachable, being open, allowing the child to feel safe in that space. So yeah,
you seem like one of those teachers that writes like on the marks, "Bekele beke, girl, you killing it."
Actually, my friends like saying that.
Yeah, slay, girl, slay.
I love talking to kids. I love interacting with them.
So, what mistakes did your own teachers make when you were still a learner that you're quite conscious of avoiding right now?
I think the greatest mistake you could make as a teacher is walking into a class and assuming that the kids are clueless and that they're blank. And I believe that when I was young, I was very opinionated and I used to talk a lot and I used to ask a lot of questions, and my teachers would get annoyed. Like, even my classmate, I was that one child who always wanted to know more, and that gained me a nickname that I would never say, because a lot of my peers still call me that. So I believe that as a teacher, you must walk into a classroom with the mindset that you are not just going to be teaching the learners, but you are going to be learning alongside them. So that when a learner comes up with a different perspective or a different way of doing things, you as a teacher, you are willing to explore that. You don't shut down their ideas, because when you do that, they're going to have the notion that whatever that they can come out on their own is not valuable, and they will grow up not trusting that they can do anything. They will always want someone to lead and they follow, because you've taught them that they can't have perspectives and ideas of their own. They only have to take what a more knowledgeable person has to offer.
Well, for me, I think the mistake was in high school when we began the career and career expos. Going there, taking us students, high school students, more specifically grade 11 and 12. There was never a teacher that told us about the teaching profession. There was never a teacher that said, why don't you take teaching as a career? There was never a teacher that said, have you ever looked into teaching? There's this and that and that. But then we just went to varsities whereby we would get there. There's a stand for humanities. You'd find that there's arts, there's drama, there's stuff like that. But now there's none that says this is for teachers. Hence, we don't actually have young teachers. They are afraid. Why isn't there a stand for teachers? What is it that they're going through that doesn't actually they don't want us to go through too? So I feel like that instills some sort of fear of the unknown. And it's not really disappointing, but I feel like us as the aspiring teachers, the young upcoming teachers, we need to learn to motivate the learners to be proud of our own profession, to instill discipline that it is okay to be a teacher, it is okay to be an electrical engineer, and it is the most important thing that we should instill is that we should know that teaching is the mother of all professions. We all started there.
Shout out.
I think the issue is that a lot of people view teaching as the bare minimum. Like even when you say to somebody, "Oh, I'm doing teaching," it's like, "Oh, maybe because you didn't qualify for something better, or you're clueless, or you didn't know what to do." So it's looked as that one thing that you do because you are clueless, you're not smart enough, or you don't know what to do with your time. So that's why a lot of the young people are actually shying away from being teachers, because then you look like you're not smart enough. It's because people actually think that being a teacher is simple. Anybody can do it. You just walk in class, take a textbook, and write notes on the board. But it's actually the most challenging thing.
Yeah.
Now that I'm also starting teaching, I've seen that it requires a lot from you. It takes a lot from you as a person. So yeah, people should just view teaching as valuable as any other profession.
Tell us about some of the interesting experiences that you've had as a student teacher at a South African school. Just one will do.
So I think the most interesting thing that has happened since I've become an intern teacher has to be the relationship between the learners and myself. Like, learners are very caring and they're very kind, and they take notice on even on the simplest details.
Smallest things.
The smallest details. Like, they notice, they know you even when you're not aware that they do, and they show appreciation. Like, I get a lot of loves when I walk into class. I get hugs.
That's sweet.
I get shouts, "Good morning, Teacher Labu," every day. So even if I have my moments and I come home and I'm tired, but in the morning I get a refreshing start because someone's always happy to see me.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, actually, I agree with Label because I teach high school. So I get the same energy from some high school learners. So I actually realized that I actually blend more with the older learners than preschool learners.
Okay.
But then also, the one experience that I've actually been through was when I was in a primary school, and I actually I won't mention the name of the school, but then I felt that in that environment teachers were afraid of change because mostly they were older teachers, older, above 50, above 40, and women and men. So now there was no young teacher, only the young people only worked in the admin area. So now those teachers were so afraid of change that they felt threatened by us. There was only like 3 interns in that school. They felt threatened by us, but then they were also using us to their own advantage, that I have a lesson now, can you please go for my lesson? And then you will go. He or she will not come and observe you, but then you'll just go and teach because you're there to teach.
Wow.
And you love teaching. But then I felt that a lot of teachers are afraid of change, older teachers. And it's a critical thing in the society that we're living in, because now the world is revolving. There's going to be 4th IR soon, and it's already happening. And I feel like if teachers are still afraid of change, then our learners are going to be in a very tight spot when everything hits hard, especially because now the COVID has actually proved that we are very behind in using technology in our schools.
Yeah, and if learners if we continue teaching learners today the same way as they were taught back then we're not necessarily preparing them for the future. So we're basically just wasting time because they're not going to be able to apply any of the skills that they're acquiring today in the future.
Lastly, ladies, how are you involved with the Global Teachers Institute, and how did you find out about it?
I found out about GTI through a UNISA group. So there was this group where we